Good afternoon. My name is Guila Siegel, and I'm the Associate Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. The JCRC is the Central Public Affairs and Community Relations arm of the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington. We represent over 100 synagogues, Jewish schools, JCCs, and other local Jewish organizations. At the end of what has been a very challenging week for the Jewish community, here in Fairfax, in Rockville, and in other cities across the United States, we are proud and very grateful to stand today alongside our federal, state, and local elected officials, leaders of our law enforcement agencies, and our many brothers and sisters in the interfaith community. In the last 6 days, we have witnessed numerous Jewish institutions, including 2 schools in our area, once again being subjected to coordinated telephone bomb threats. And we have mourned the desecration of 2 Jewish cemeteries by vandals in Philadelphia and in Rochester, New York. According to the Anti-Defamation League, since the beginning of this calendar year, 96 Jewish institutions in 36 states, including schools and Jewish community centers that house preschools, have received over 120 bomb threats. Those are infuriating numbers, but they don't tell the entire story, not by a long shot. The real story lies in the resilience and determination of our American Jewish community, which refuses to become paralyzed with fear, which refuses to let the poison of anti-Semitism and bigotry keep us from living our lives freely and proudly. The real story lies in the elected officials who are here with us today, who have supported and advocated for our community and raised their voices in defense of the core values of freedom, justice, tolerance, and pluralism that are the cornerstone of the beautiful mosaic that is American society. The real story lies in law enforcement agencies that are working day and night to identify and apprehend the criminals who are behind these hateful acts, and to protect our institutions, our sacred spaces, our families, our children. And last, but certainly not least, the real story lies in the deep bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood that unite people of all faiths in opposing the dark forces that are behind these evil acts that target the other, whether that other is Jewish, Muslim, or any other religious or ethnic group. Just this week, the Al-Hijrah Mosque right here in Fairfax received vicious hate mail and threatening phone calls. We unite here today with the deep shared conviction that even as the tidal waves of hatred grow ever stronger, we stand shoulder to shoulder, and we will not be thrown. We've been here before, as the now ubiquitous hashtag says. No doubt these persistent attacks have caused rising anxiety among American Jews, and they have been disruptive to our daily lives. But we will never let these cowardly acts deter us from sending our children to school, from attending our houses of worship, from enjoying our recreational facilities, and from living our lives as free, proud Americans. Our history, our faith, our resilience, and our deep bonds with other people of goodwill will allow us to remain strong in the face of this resurgence of anti-Semitism and to triumph over the destructive forces of hatred. It's now my pleasure to introduce Steve Rakitt, the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington.
Good afternoon and welcome.
That was great.
I don't think any of us want to be here, but we're all glad to be here. And for that, I thank you. Ron Halber, the Executive Director of the JCRC, and I just drove over from a similar gathering in Montgomery County. And I heard some truly uplifting and extraordinary words that I'm sure we'll hear this afternoon. And I was reminded of the words of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who's the former chief rabbi of England, who said, when the world is divided, let's do the opposite thing and show that we're united. How true. As a community, we are stronger together. And today, with the support of our elected representatives, law enforcement officials, and the community, our strength is our unity. We are united against hate. We are united against threat and intimidation against anyone, any group, any religion. And we are united against those who seek to divide us as communities of faith and as a nation. The safety of our community is a priority for the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington, and that's why we provide significant support for security and proudly stand with our local institutions as they work diligently to ensure the safety and security of community members. I want to express my personal appreciation to those on the front lines of this battle for the heart, soul, and safety of our community and our country. My colleagues at the JCCs, day schools, agencies, and synagogues who work each and every day to ensure the safety and security of their members and students. Local law enforcement, the first responders who arrive within minutes, check our buildings, and provide protection and comfort to allay our concerns. To the FBI, for so tirelessly working to solve these horrible crimes and bring the perpetrators to justice. And to our elected officials who are with us here today and standing with us and with all communities of faith to uphold the values that we have made, that have made our country a beacon of hope throughout the world. In the wake of the haters' intentions, there are signs of hope, and friends and neighbors from Christian and Muslim communities locally and around the nation have extended their support and solidarity to us, and we to them, especially to the Muslim community nationally, which has experienced 139 cases of vandalism to mosques last year and 4 fires set by arsonists in just the first 2 months of this year. In the wake of anti-Semitic acts across the nation as recently as this week in our own community, we are alert but not alarmed. We are aware but not naive. And we are vigilant but not without hope. We will not permit hateful voices to intimidate or prevent us from accessing and enjoying our community's institutions. In the face of hate, we stand strong together. Thank you. Director of Virginia Government and Community Relations for the JCRC.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Jeff Dannick, the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Center of Northern Virginia, up to the podium.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the J, our home. Our J is guided by Jewish values, welcoming the stranger, being inclusive, being open to all, regardless of faith, background, or sexual orientation. We're here for everybody. I want to thank the organizers of today's event, JCRC and the Jewish Federation, the extraordinary display of elected officials who have taken time to be here with us today, local and federal law enforcement, faith leaders from throughout our community, all of our attending dignitaries, guests, and press for being here today. You've already heard about the waves of threats that have affected JCCs and Jewish day schools across the country. All of these threats have been non-credible, but we can't make that assumption going forward. We have to be prepared and we have to be strong. This is stressful for our community. It's very stressful for our staff, but we are well-trained and we are resilient. And we are hopeful that the FBI will have the necessary resources to stop these hateful acts. The decision to host this press conference today was not an easy one. How do we balance the question of standing strong for our community and the temptation to keep a low profile so maybe we won't be the next to receive a call or a threat? Well, history has taught us that we must always stand up against hate. Stand up against hate and bigotry in any form that it shows. And that's not always difficult, and it's often frightening. But we remember a time when Jews did hide in fear. And we will not do that again. Never again. We have so much important work to do for our kids, for our seniors, for all of our members in our community. And these threats are taking our attention away from the important work that we need to do. So how do we persist? We have an inner strength, perhaps the result of centuries or millennia of experience that we as a people have had. We have the support of our friends and neighbors. Calls and emails I've received from members, community members. A wonderful call I got from Mark Herring, speaking with law enforcement. The sign down the block at the church that says, "We stand with our Jewish neighbors." We have support from strangers. I've received calls and emails, even a bouquet of flowers from a Muslim family in Centerville. I've never met them, they've never been here, but they stand with us. We're all in this together. This is not just about anti-Semitism. Hate speech and acts against any group is an act of hate against all of us. Threats against JCCs and Jewish day schools are threats against our broader community. We are aware of hate crimes against churches and mosques, and we stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters of all faiths. We stand with our Christian and Muslim friends, just as they are standing with us here today. We all must stand up to hate, bigotry, and cowardly acts of terrorism. Thank you for being here and standing with us together. Thank you.
We will now hear from Dan Finkel, head of school of Gesher Jewish Day School.
Good afternoon. Gesher exists to fulfill a very simple mission. Our job is to provide an outstanding education for Jewish children across Northern Virginia. We're not able to provide that outstanding education without the support and the friendship and love that we've received in the wake of our threatened moment this past Monday. So I'm really here to express gratitude. I want to thank, first of all, Jeff and the JCC for hosting this important meeting. We're proud and grateful to be partners with you and our other members of the Jewish community, the Federation, the JCRC, other area congregations, other local agencies. We feel your support and have since Monday morning. The other communities that we're part of, without whom we would not be able to do our important work, include the federal and local government, who reached out as well, local law enforcement, who arrived at our school within moments of hearing from us, and the education community, of which we are also proud to be a part. Sister schools across Northern Virginia have reached out to us to express their support. Not just Jewish schools, but Muslim schools, Christian schools, and public schools have all called and made their voices heard. These are the moments that we've chosen to focus on in our school. Yes, we had a scary moment on Monday morning, but the ensuing hours and minutes have been filled with love and support, and we're passing that along to our families and our children, and they feel it. So I'm here to say thank you to everyone here and to the entire community for enabling us to focus on what we do best, which is, again, providing this outstanding education for Jewish children from across Northern Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I would now like to invite all of our elected officials who are present and law enforcement representatives to stand together on stage. I will read the names of those present. Attorney General Mark Herring, Congressman Gerry Connolly, Congresswoman Barbara Comstock, Congressman John Beyer, Chairman Sharon Bulova, Sheriff Stacey Kincaid, Senator Richard Saslaw, Delegate Eileen Fillercorn, Mayor David Meyer, Senator Chad Peterson, Senator Dave Marsden, Delegate David Bulova, Delegate Mark Levine, Supervisor Penny Gross, Supervisor John Cook, and Supervisor Pat Harity. We are so thankful for you all being here with us today. And now I would like to welcome Attorney General Mark Herring to give remarks.
Thank you, Darcy, and good afternoon. Our Commonwealth and our country were founded on the belief that each of us is equal under the law, and the promise that each of us will have the same opportunities, be afforded the same rights, and judged only on our character and abilities, not the color of our skin, our gender, where we come from, or the way we worship. In Virginia, we are heirs to a proud legacy of religious freedom and mutual respect. Thomas Jefferson's Statute for Religious Freedom was signed just a few blocks from my office in Richmond. It was a declaration that is as valid today as it was then. No one in Virginia should be singled out for abuse, harassment, discrimination, or violence, and we will not tolerate racial or religious discrimination. To me, these are Virginia values and foundational principles of our Commonwealth and our country. But this is a frightening time for many in minority communities, whether religious, racial, or ethnic. We've seen a rise in hate crimes in Virginia and around the country. A 67% national increase in hate crimes against Muslim Americans and very recent threats against our friends at Al-Hijrah. And in Virginia, the most common victim of a religiously motivated hate crime is still a Jewish American. We've seen it all around the country, and just this week, it hit home here in Virginia. Bomb threats to schools, daycares, and community centers. Desecration of sacred spaces like cemeteries, and even the damage and destruction of houses of worship, including mosques. There is something deeply wrong in our national climate when individuals feel empowered to take these kinds of cowardly, hateful, and despicable actions against our children and our houses of worship. And I say our, because an attack against one is an attack against all. We stand united against hate, against fear, against intimidation. Christian, Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, people of all faiths and no faith. I also want to thank law enforcement who are taking these threats seriously and investigating them. And I want to make it crystal clear, as long as I am Attorney General, I will do everything in my power to keep every Virginia family safe. No matter who you are, what you look like, or how you pray, you have a place in our Commonwealth. You belong here. We are all Virginians, and we are all Americans.
Thank you, General Herring. I would like to mention that we have Chief Edwin Roessler of Fairfax County Police Department here, as well as Special Agents Giulio Arseni and Special Agent Andrew Berger of the FBI's Washington Field Office. I would now like to welcome Congressman Gerry Connolly to the podium.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the 11th District of Virginia. Today we are all Jews, so the haters have their work cut out for them. You can't separate us. You can't single out one from the other, because we are the same. America is a work in progress. We always are. We have the loftiest ideals on the planet, and we're always striving toward those ideals. And at periods of our history, we fall back. I think in 2016, in the recent campaign, we slid back. For whatever reason, hate groups felt empowered. White supremacists, anti-Semites, racists, bigots. And we're seeing the consequences of the unleashing of that today. Today, it's Jews. Yesterday, it was Muslims. Who will it be tomorrow? Only when we stand together, unified, as Americans, no matter what our background, no matter where we came from, no matter what Americans. We are one, and we stand together. And we have something really going for us. Haters, deep down, are insecure in their own beliefs. And that's why they have to strike out at others and their beliefs. They're almost always cowards and anonymous. But it doesn't take away the sting. But we can control the fear. We don't have to let their actions and their words control us. And that's why we're here today, standing together as one community. We won't let hate prevail. We will never allow hate to control our lives. And we will demonstrate by giving this witness that actually support, inclusion, opportunity, acceptance are the dominant values of America and can only grow because of these incidents. Thank you all so much for being here today. Keep the faith.
Thank you, Congressman Connolly. I'd now like to welcome Congresswoman Barbara Comstock to the podium.
Good afternoon. 143 students, I believe, at the school. Those are our children. And we can look at your school and know that that could be any of our schools. So we are here united, as my colleagues have said. And when we hear about the 120 bomb threats around the country that have come in rapid succession, we are very pleased that our FBI is right on this and our law enforcement working with our state and local officials. And I thank them for what they're doing. The 96 centers that have been attacked, 36 states. This is going on from coast to coast. So we have to focus on that. I thank the JCRC for all their work and the privilege of working with them when I was both in the State House and now, and appreciate all of your expertise. I thank the whole interfaith community that's here today. You know, the Adams Center recently had a Holocaust remembrance where they brought the interfaith community together, and I was honored to be there and join with you and hear from a Holocaust victim, and also have the interfaith community honor Rizwan Jaka, who's here today, who is the outreach interfaith coordinator at Adams. So we have to condemn this anti-Semitism in all its forms and wherever it surfaces. And the reality is it has been surfacing more and more these days. In Europe, we see incidents in France, Belgium, Denmark, and other countries. We have a bipartisan bill in Congress right now, bicameral bill. I believe my colleagues in the Senate, Senator Rubio and Senator Kaine, and then in the House, it is a bill to curb the growing anti-Semitism in Europe, but requiring the U.S. government and the State Department to be doing more thoroughly reporting that, and so that we can assist with that and make sure that's not going on, and we can understand what's going on there and hopefully prevent it here. We have also unfortunately seen it over the past decades more and more on our campuses. Places of learning where we have to be able to have the kind of open discussions, and certainly here in Virginia, where the home of Thomas Jefferson, that statute that's etched in the House of Delegates, with some of my colleagues here have served in also. So we have to have those education efforts on our campuses. On the internet, this is so growing on the internet, and it's such a problem. So that is an area where we all, when we're in the center of the technology boom here in Virginia, we have to be able to provide those solutions with our law enforcement, with our internet community, with our technology community, and make sure that stops there, and that we as parents know what's going on and the kind of messages that are out there and how dangerous that is. And then again, of course, what has happened here with these bomb incidents and the desecrating of cemeteries. What more profoundly evil thing? So this banality of evil that we saw, in the last century that happened, we cannot allow that banality and to not have us see that this is evil. And when we unite our interfaith community and stand against it, it does send a strong message that we are all united and against this. Certainly we need to, since we are so close here in our region, in the Northern Virginia region, to the Holocaust Museum, I would recommend all to use this. So many such a proliferance of learning tools that we have there. And I know in looking at the website, they talked about how in Europe this growing anti-Semitism is increasingly evident in both the far left and the far right. We need to know where it is and how it is, and it's across, and we're seeing that again in our country. So again, thank all of my colleagues who are joined here together. We are united, and we appreciate the opportunity that JCRC has given us and all the leadership that you have shown over the years, and for the center in hosting this event. God bless you all.
Thank you, Congresswoman Comstock. I would now like to welcome Congressman Don Beyer to the mic.
I'm incredibly sad to be here today, but also incredibly proud to be here with so many people, so many elected officials, Democrats and Republicans, from Northern Virginia, from across the state, in our unified condemnation of the recent bomb threats at Gesher and other Jewish schools, community centers, the vandalism of Jewish graves. One of the great moral dilemma of my life has been trying to understand the Holocaust. Reading Hannah Arendt, and Deborah Lipstadt, and Peter Matheson, and everything that I can over the years, I still cannot make any headway into man's inhumanity to man, except for the thought that there's one simple, unavoidable truth: is the presence of evil in our world. And in a world that's too often relativistic, it comes back at us again and again. Anti-Semitism is a scourge on the human community. It's a bigotry whose terrible persistence, whose horrific legacy require continued vigilance. And we seem to be living in a moment where it's come up again in a terrible way. Trevor Noah went on TV to say, why now is it okay to be racist or homophobic or xenophobic or misogynist or especially anti-Semitic? You know, look, and Gerry and Barbara talked about cowards, defenseless children, the memory of lost loved ones. I wrote down, this cannot continue, but this will continue, but this cannot continue. And one of the things we can do is, surrounded by excellent law enforcement officials, is recognize that of the thousands of law enforcement agencies in America, only a relative handful actually report hate crimes. Last year, I introduced a bill called the Hate Bill that Ms. Comstock, Mr. Connolly were both on, I'm fairly certain. This simply requires no federal money to these local law enforcement agencies unless they report the hate crimes, because the FBI and others can't chase them down if they don't know that this exists. And one last thought, as a Gentile, as a Christian, I think it is, as we stand here united together, it seems to me incredibly important that those of us who are not Jews do everything we can to respect, to lift up, to embrace, and to love the Jewish friends and neighbors and acquaintances that we have. That, as with so many things in the world, we have to solve this one life at a time. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Congressman Beyer. I would now like to invite Chairman of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, Sharon Bulova.
Thank you so much, and first let me thank the JCRC and the Fairfax Jewish Community Center for hosting this event. And I think that it is really significant that you brought us together and all levels of government in a heartbeat responded. And I think the presence here on this stage is a real demonstration of our community and how much we care about each other and how much we care about our Jewish community. Fairfax County, even with our large population of over 1 million people, is a tight-knit community, a family that values all of our members. Any threat directed against our Jewish neighbors or our Muslim neighbors or any of our neighbors is a threat against all of us. Fairfax County will not tolerate violence or threats that seek to damage the harmony our community strives for every day. We are and we will continue to be a county that cherishes the values of respect and acceptance, where we welcome, appreciate, and celebrate one another's differences and cultural backgrounds. I am proud of the Jewish community that has made Fairfax County their home and denounce those who have made destructive threats to them and other Jewish communities throughout the nation. I would also like to use this opportunity as an opportunity to promote an event on Sunday, March the 26th at 3 p.m., which is a united response to hate speech, bias incidents, and hate crimes. And I hope that you will join us to learn how individuals and communities can constructively address the problem of hateful rhetoric. Thank you again for this opportunity for us to come together and for this opportunity for us to speak up and to reassure our community, all of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Fairfax County Sheriff Stacy Kincaid to the podium.
So today I am here as your sheriff and also as a member of the Jewish community. No person, no group, no place of worship, and no community should ever be targeted on the basis of religion or culture. I stand in support of all of you for not only what you do as folks within the community, but also the Northern Virginia Jewish Community Center and how you not only assist our members, but also you assist residents and provide invaluable services. I want to thank Darcy and JCC for the invitation to come and to speak and to stand with you all today. And as the chairman mentioned, it's just, I'm thrilled to see in a very short period of time how we're able to get folks together and to unite on something that is part of our value system, and it's very important. And again, there's no place for hate within our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff Kincaid. I would now like to invite Chief Roessler to the podium to offer a few words.
Thank you. As your chief of police, I want to convey thanks from your police officers and those who work for the Fairfax County Police Department, especially our volunteers, together in one of the most diverse counties in the United States of America. We are the safest jurisdiction in the United States, and that's because of our vision. We are an engaged community that teams together to prevent and fight crime. And when it comes to bias, events, and crimes, we are highly engaged. And as you heard earlier, that engagement has not been recent. It's been since July 1st, 1940, when the police department started. We trained together, all of you from the interfaith community, and you know that, and you hold me accountable. And I just thank you that we are blessed to be engaged. We know each other by a first name basis, and together we will eliminate hate in Fairfax County and be the example for not only the state, but the nation. So thank you and bless you.
Thank you, Chief Roessler. Will Senator Saslaw please come up?
Thank you, and I want to thank the JCRC for organizing today's event. It's unfortunate that we had to get together this way. Let me say right off the bat, you don't have to worry about the Fairfax County Police and the FBI doing their job. Ultimately, the FBI will get every last one of these people, and appreciate all the good work that you all do. Unfortunately, there's always going to be somebody to take their place. Anti-Semitism didn't just start yesterday or this week. It's been around for over 1,000 years, and unfortunately may be around for a pretty long period of time. That doesn't mean we should in any way, shape, or form tolerate it. But I got to tell you, it seems to have greatly been amplified over the last 21, 22 months. And it doesn't help, and I'm going to say it, it doesn't help when the person running for the highest office in the land tells somebody at a rally, go ahead and throw them out, beat them up, I'll pay your legal fees. Be honest with you, the net effect of that, whether it was intended or not, was to embolden virtually every bigot in this country and let people know that this kind of behavior is somewhat acceptable, if not just plain acceptable. Well, it's not. And by people being here today, you know, from both political parties, it lets them know that it lets everybody know in this community it's not going to be tolerated. But make no mistake about it, you know, as President Truman once said, the buck stops here, stops at the White House. And that's where the most forceful action needs to come from, and it needs to come from in a real hurry and in no uncertain terms. You know, generally speaking, when you find people who, you know, are full of anti-Semitism, you can pretty much guess that it doesn't stop there. It applies to the African American community, the Muslim community, and anybody else that's not the same as them. So, you know, we've got to be vigilant. We need to tell it like it is. But again, the people who are on the front line, the FBI, I can't thank you all enough for what you do. And like I said, count on them. You can take it to the bank. They're going to find the people who are responsible for what went on this week in the Washington metropolitan area, but there's going to be somebody else who's going to take their place. And for that, we have to remain vigilant 24/7. Thank you all for having me here, and thank you all for putting on this event.
Thank you, Senator Saslaw. I would now like to invite Delegate Eileen to the podium, who will be offering remarks in her capacity as Vice Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, and will also be offering words from Governor Terry McAuliffe and Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, although I so wish it was under better and different circumstances. I'm proud to stand here not just as a legislator, nor as a Jew, but also as a human being, to state that hate has no home. Hate has no home here, not in Fairfax County, not the Commonwealth of Virginia, nor the United States of America. What happened to Gesher Day School in Fairfax, as well as the Charles E. Smith Jewish Day School in Rockville, is absolutely inexcusable. We cannot allow these actions to go unrecognized for what they are: cowardly acts of hate. I am deeply disturbed by these events and the so many other events that have occurred around the country, and not just against Jews, against Muslims and so many other groups. We cannot allow this or any other kind of hate become the status quo in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Instances like this only serve to further divide our society and spread fear throughout our communities, which obviously is their goal. We must continue to call out and condemn these acts as we are today. As Americans, we're all entitled to freedom of religion and the pursuit of happiness, in addition to so many other inalienable rights. We should not have to be fearful that we cannot work, or fearful to worship, or fearful to send our children to school safely. And when these rights are threatened, we must be willing to put out the destructive fire of hate. I so appreciate the work that our dedicated law enforcement officers, Fairfax County Police, the Virginia State Police, and FBI have been doing already to investigate what occurred at the Gesher Day School. And as has been mentioned before, thank you to them for putting their lives on the line to protect us every single day. Despite different religions and backgrounds, we Virginians are a commonwealth of neighbors, standing alongside each other, standing tall as a united people. At this moment, I'd also just like to briefly read a statement from our 72nd Governor, Governor Terry McAuliffe. Virginians stand united in condemning recent instances of anti-Semitism occurring both here, at home, and abroad. Threats, vandalism, and acts of violence directed against Jewish people are repugnant to our most basic human values. As governor, I pledge to do all that I can to combat the senseless and hateful trend in our nation. Governor Terry McAuliffe. This time I'd also like to read a statement from our Lieutenant Governor, Ralph Northam. Thank you all for being here to send a strong message that we will not sit idly by while our brothers and our sisters are targeted by disturbing threats of violence. No Virginian should live in fear because of who they are or who they worship. And all backgrounds safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Fellercorn. I would now like to invite Mayor David Meyer, Mayor of the City of Fairfax, to the podium.
I'm David Meyer, and I'm the Mayor of the City of Fairfax. I stand with my fellow elected leaders here in Northern Virginia as a statement of support to the Gesher School and the Jewish Community Center, and to affirm the good work that all believers do here in the city of Fairfax, here in the community of Fairfax. As it's been said, a threat to one group, one institution, or even one person is a threat to us all. Our democracy stands as a statement to the world that civil liberties in all their forms, especially the freedom to choose how one worships one's creator, is a basic human right enshrined in our Constitution. No one, especially our children, should live in fear because of the faith that they hold, or the language that they speak, or the country from which they came and what they were born in. Today we stand in solidarity with our neighbors who have experienced a tragic and unacceptable attempt at intimidation. I'm confident that our presence here today affirms that all of us are committed to a community, a commonwealth, and a nation where we can show the world, in the words of President Lincoln, the better angels of our nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Meyer. Let's give our elected officials and law enforcement representatives a big round of applause. Thank you all for being here today. I would now like to invite our supporters from the faith community to join me on stage. I would like to invite Rabbi David Callender, Chair of the Fairfax Clergy and Leadership Council, Rizwan Jaka, Chair of the Al-Hijrah Area Muslim Society, Reverend Anya Sammler-Michael of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Sterling, Colin Christopher, Deputy Director of Government Relations for Al-Hijrah Islamic Center. I would also like to invite Mr. V. Shen of the Durga Temple, Reverend Mick Burns from Providence Presbyterian Church, Reagan Brow, Director of Public Affairs for the LDS Church Annandale State, Reverend Rob Vaughn, the Community of Faith United Methodist Church, Edgar Aranda Yarak from the Virginia Coalition of Latino Organizations, Ijab Singh from the Sikh Foundation of Virginia, and Sandra Chisholm of the Fairfax County Faith Communities in Action. I would also like to invite our rabbis who are in the audience, Rabbi Brett Isero and Cantor Jason Kaufman from Congregation Bethel, Cantor Alan Leader, Cantor Michael Shakitt, and Cantor Rachel Rhodes from Temple Road of Shalom, and Rabbi Stephen Ream from Congregation Agudas Achim. I would now like to invite Rabbi David Callender to the podium.
A number of people have shared information as well as support from our local, state, federal officials, and for those in law enforcement, as well as from the DC area Jewish organizations. So what do I have to offer? I wear so many different hats today. I'm a Fairfax County resident who lives on a street that's a microcosm of our area. On my little lane, children play together in English, Korean, in Arabic, in Hebrew, and in Spanish. As a rabbi speaking on behalf of the approximately 80,000 Jews here in Northern Virginia, I want to share our appreciation for those from our government and law enforcement who work around the clock to ensure our safety. As a servant and as a leader of a congregation, I want to remind the Jewish community that our synagogues are places of comfort and safety and security. As a father whose children attended the Gesher Jewish Day School, where I was when the bomb threat was called in, I'm here to encourage you and to remind you, as well as all the parents who spend time here at the JCC, that our children are safe everywhere in our county. And finally, as chairman of the Fairfax County Clergy and Leadership Council, I must share with you the overwhelming support that I received at yesterday's council meeting. With over 20 different faith communities gathered around the table, I was inspired, uplifted by the personal and communal prayers, which were fused with concrete offers of support not only to the Jewish community, but to everyone who makes their home here. And in that spirit, I share with you a statement passed in yesterday's gathering. The Fairfax County Clergy and Leadership Council is committed to the acceptance, sustainability, and celebration of Fairfax County's diversity and its inclusion in all aspects of living, worshiping, working, studying, and recreation in our community. The council applauds Fairfax County for building and maintaining a community of religious, cultural, and ethnic respect, and for unwavering policies and laws that maintain the well-being and safety of all residents. Again, to echo Chairman Bulova's reminder that on March 26th, there's going to be a program that we, the interfaith community, are central to, which is focused upon a united response to hate speech and crime that'll be held right down the block at the Northern Virginia Community College. Jewish tradition teaches, Kol ha'olam kulo Gesher tzamra od, lo lefachid klal, that often the world is a very narrow bridge, and we're fearful that we may fall off that bridge and topple. The most important thing to remember and to live by is that we must never be afraid. Love, justice, and peace will always triumph and prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Calendar. I will now like to invite Rizwan Jaffa from the Adams Center to the podium.
Salam, Shalom, peace, Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Shanti. Peace be to you, brothers and sisters in humanity. I am Rizwan Jaffa, chair of the board of the Al-Dawla Muslim Society, and we have 2 mosques represented here, and 220,000 Muslim community members in Virginia stand shoulder to shoulder in partnership, in love, and solidarity with our Jewish community brothers and sisters in Virginia and around the nation to condemn anti-Semitism, to condemn this bigotry, to condemn the threats to the Jewish community centers and schools, to condemn the threats against the cemeteries and the vandalism against the cemeteries. The American Muslim community has stood up against this anti-Semitism. American Muslims have raised money to repair the Jewish cemeteries that have been vandalized. My own congregation, last week, the Scouts went to the Northern Virginia Hebrew congregation in solidarity with the Jewish community. Our Ashburn community that shares space with the Beth Havarim Reform Congregation went there to the Beth Havarim Synagogue last Friday in solidarity. When the Muslim community has been attacked, the Jewish community stands with us in shoulder to shoulder in partnership. And we truly appreciate that bond of all faith communities standing together. And as I mentioned with my greetings of peace and salutations from all the faith communities, we stand shoulder to shoulder in Virginia and around the nation to speak out against bigotry and hate. And we rise up against it. God tells us in the Holy Quran, we respond to bad with good. And we know the Jewish community is leadership in showing that responding to bad with good, and the interfaith community is doing such as well. We're also, our thoughts and prayers are with the 2 Indian Hindus that one was killed and one was injured in Kansas City in a xenophobic anti-Middle Eastern immigrant attack. And we appreciate the Ian Grillote who tried to save lives in that incident. So we know hate and bigotry are on the rise, and we are here to challenge that together. We truly appreciate the FBI and the police for what they do day in and day out in protecting civil rights and countering hate crimes. And we must continue to partner with law enforcement for civil rights as well as for national security. and is so, so important. Tonight at 6 p.m., our community will also be going to the Northern Virginia Hebrew congregation in solidarity with our brothers and sisters during the Shabbat service tonight. And I remind us all, as the Honorable Congresswoman Comstock mentioned, we must educate our communities, educate our country to counter anti-Semitism. That is something that Imam Majid, our Executive Religious Director, he led U.S. Muslim leaders to Auschwitz. He led international Muslim leaders to Auschwitz to pray for the victims of the Holocaust and to remember that never again, never again. And so we must continue to stand together against hate. As our Honorable Attorney General of Virginia has launched NoHateVA.com, we must stand together, respond in unity, respond with American values and faithful values. Peace be with you. Salam, Shalom, Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Shanti.
Thank you, Rizwan. I would now like to invite Reverend Anya Sammler-Michael of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Sterling to offer a few words.
It is a sad occasion, but it is so good to be with all of you. I come today with lament and with hope and with a sense of solidarity. The lament is the lament that there is hate in our world and that it affects the most vulnerable, that it has recently affected our Jewish community near and far. The lament is that there is hate in our world and it affects us in acts that come from words and that come from actions. Then how do I come here today with hope? Where does the hope come from? It comes from being with all of you. It comes from this gathering of solidarity. And it comes also from my own personal history. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister that serves in Loudoun County. The only reason that I was given life was due to the gifts that my family received of a home when they were in trouble. My mother's family is Jewish. My father's family is Catholic. My mother's family comes from the Ukraine. My father's family comes from Poland. They got to this nation, to these safe shores, early enough to survive the brutality of the Holocaust, the brutality of those terrible times. The hope that I have is that these stories that help us remember how our lives are intermixed and intermingled, that these stories will help us keep changing our world for the better. What I ask of you is to think of those stories that you have that speak to the way your life is intermixed and intermingled, how diversity has brought you to this safe harbor of your existence, how diversity has held you in your life. Tell those stories. Tell them on the internet. Tell them to someone you just met. If you have a pulpit to speak from, tell them from your pulpits. Tell them to your faith communities. Tell them to your constituencies. Tell the stories of our diversity and how our diversity saves us.
Thank you, Reverend Anya. I would now like to invite Colin Christopher of the Al-Hijrah Islamic Center to offer a few words.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon everyone who is here, and thanks to the JCRC for putting this together. When I was a child growing up in Wisconsin, I went to Camp Shalom during my summers. I learned how to make crazy art, we played games, captured the flag, and I consumed an ample amount of challah and grape juice on Friday afternoons. But I'm not here today because I went to Jewish camp. And I'm not here today because I have Jewish family members. Or even because my mosque and Falls Church where I worship received multiple bomb threats over the last few weeks. Martin Niemöller reminds us every day why we stand strong with those who are targeted. Anyone who's targeted. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, but I was not a trade unionist, so I did not speak up for them. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Dr. King reminded us, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You must stand for what's right, not because of what Jews believe or what Muslims believe, but because of what all of us believe. And that is the right to worship freely in this country. In the past month alone, there have been hundreds of bomb threats to the Jewish and Muslim community. At least 2 mosques were burned to the ground. 2 Jewish cemeteries were desecrated. And a man in Kansas was murdered while having dinner by someone who mistaken him for being of Middle Eastern origin. Regardless of which ethnicity or religious community is threatened, attacked, we must come together publicly, like we are doing today, and denounce this deep-seated, ignorance-derived hate that has revealed itself once again in our country. The Holy Quran reminds us that God created us different so that we may get to know one another. We all worship the same God, and He created us different for a reason. The best among us are those who are God-conscious and live in peace and piety. We pray that God gives us the strength to fight on with love and compassion, even for those who mistakenly see others as enemies. And that's the hard part. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. I'd like to thank our faith leaders for their inspirational words, for their support and solidarity in being here with us today. I'd also like to thank our legislators, elected officials, and our law enforcement representatives for being here as well. It's really a testament to the strength of our community that we were able to get such wonderful support in such a short notice, and it's really only through working together and standing together in unity that we're going to create the world that we want to live in and fight hatred and intolerance. Before we conclude, I would like to invite all of our elected officials and law enforcement officials up to the stage for a group photo with our faith leaders. Thank you all.